This podcast is part of the Michigan Sports and Entertainment Podcast Network. Go to michigansportsandentertainment.com for more great podcasts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wasting Time with Chris, Beth, and Matt. My name is Chris Williams. With me are
Beth Golpe
and
Matt December.
Welcome to the show. This is the first episode. If our voices sound familiar, you may be one of the 5 who listened to It's My Favorite, the show we did for 4 years. For
wow,
5 people.
that's a long time.
We did it that long?
We did 4 years. We started in 2015.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That was a fun show. If you've listened to that before, I think you're going to get a kick out of this. It's very similar, but probably a little more focused. We're going to try and keep these to about 30 minutes when we can, but you're going to get more podcasts because we're going to do it once a month. Nope,
Wrong.
We're not. Once a week. It's already like the old show.
Yeah.
So this will come out weekly whenever we can do that, but topic-wise, pop culture, life, and our favorite things, baby.
Yeah, baby.
Bread and butter.
But we are on the Michigan Sports and Entertainment Podcast Network now. Big times.
Yeah, this is right.
Such a
It's
big
very
fan.
exciting, yeah.
Up from our Podbean days. And here we are.
Yeah.
So I thought before we get into the subject, and basically every week we have a new piece of pop culture or life or a question to talk about. But before we do that, let's just take some time and introduce ourselves. Beth, why don't you start?
Sure. My name is Beth Golpe. I'm a mom of 2 boys. I run a website from home where I blog about mindfulness and meditation and spirituality, and I sell crystals. And I love movies, TV, books, pretty much anything pop culture. And I really love chatting with these 2 guys.
Oh.
That's nice. We love chatting with you.
Oh,
What's the name of your
thanks.
blog?
Oh, it's called unicornfood.com, and that's Y-O-U, like you're the unicorn.
Aw.
It makes you feel special.
Right.
Yeah.
It's inside you the whole time.
The unicorn was inside me the whole time.
I hurt. Matt, why don't you tell people who you are as you're drinking a big swig of water there?
Okay. Where do I start? What do I tell them?
Who are you?
I'm
What's
a
your deal?
guy. I work for a living. I'm a writer professionally. I have a cat. We usually record at my house because it's kind of the middle-ish between the 3 of us.
You also
It's
have
the
no
quietest.
kids.
I have some
Yeah.
no kids. I don't have a dumb dog or anything.
You do have a cat who you will hear on this podcast.
He's very chatty. Yeah, he's not.
He's vocal.
He's not out here now. I don't know what he's doing, but he'll show up at some point.
I think you do CrossFit enough for that to be part of, like, your bio.
Crush it!
You want me to talk about CrossFit?
I just think it's part of your bio. Like,
I mean,
that's what you,
okay.
how you
think
spend
that's
your
good.
time.
You do CrossFit.
I do CrossFit. I've been doing that for it's almost a year now. I didn't think I would last nearly that long because I thought it was kind of but it's fun. It's a nice community.
I can tell you like it a lot.
You can? You can?
Yeah,
tell?
I can.
Well, good. So that's going on. That's pretty busy. I'm not going as much as I'd like to go. I've only been really going a couple days a week recently.
Ain't that the way?
I know, but gonna get back in going more often, I think, once the weather turns warm. And anyway, yeah, so that's it. Life's good.
Chris, tell us about you.
Yeah, so I am also a writer. I had the pleasure of writing alongside Matt for several years.
So sweet.
A newspaper. I don't write a newspaper anymore because I have kids and I wanted to feed my kids. But I have 2 kids. I work as a writer and editor, but I also write here at Michigan Sports and Entertainment. I write about film. I've been doing that for a long time, and I started doing that at MSE back in the fall. And so I write the Retro Reviews column every Tuesday, which is a look at old movies. And I write the Cross Streams column on Thursdays, which looks at TV and film and other things you can find on streaming. I also co-host the podcast We're Watching Here, a movie podcast on Michigan Sports and Entertainment. So check that out if you like it. It's very movie-focused. I co-host it with Perry Seibert, and it's a lot of fun. But I'm really looking forward to doing this show because I love chatting with you guys, and it's fun. And I think we're going to talk about some fun, funny, enjoyable stuff.
Really uplifting.
Next week. So this week we decided to talk about the Michael Jackson documentary, Leaving Neverland, that aired on HBO a few weeks ago. It was like, a week or two ago as we're recording this.
Yeah.
But it is available on HBO Go, HBO Now. It's about 4 hours long. It takes a few sits to get through this. That's why we're talking about it so late. But it actually continues to be pretty relevant. The documentary, obviously, it follows two men, Wade Robson and James Safechuck, who are two boys who knew Michael Jackson growing up, and they detail the sexual abuse they claim to have suffered at his hands. And this is still being talked about several weeks later. I know The Simpsons pulled the Michael Jackson episode they did from their streaming service. They will not release it on DVD. That, as far as they are concerned, does not exist anymore.
Really?
Which is kind of shocking. There are radio stations that do not play Michael Jackson anymore. But, yeah, I also saw a report this week that said when you talk to Spotify, listens of Michael Jackson's music have not dropped at all. They're about the same level. So it's kind of this split between, who's given up on him, who's still listening to them, why is that okay? And we thought it might be interesting to talk about and get the conversation going. So first off, we've all seen at least part of the documentary, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I only watched part 1, which is like the first 2 hours. It's split into like 2 videos on HBO. So I watched just the first part. And then I immediately texted Matt and said, I'm not watching the second part because I was too upset, and it was so hard for me to watch that I could not imagine watching another minute of it. And I know that sounds really dramatic, but it really horrified me, and I have been struggling since I watched it with my own sort of blinders that I feel like I've had on. I enjoyed Michael Jackson's music up until like literally, 5 days ago or whatever. I mean, it just felt like this sort of thing that people like joked about, but there was like no proof of it, or like was there, but I don't know. And like, but he had a really traumatic, bizarre childhood, and I know he was abused by his dad, and maybe it was just like, I just never, it all like seems really unfocused in my mind. Mm-hmm, and I would still listen to the music, still like have it on while I was cleaning my house or whatever, occasionally.
Yeah.
Like I grew up in the 80s. And now like after watching this documentary, thinking about the music makes me feel like sick to my stomach. Like it really, and I feel like so shamey that I did that. That's all didn't like click for me before this point. Like, how did you feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, because the first question I wanted to ask you guys was, do you believe the two men? And obviously, if you do, you believe them. And I would say the same thing. My question going into this was, does this need to be 4 hours long? Because that's a lot of time to talk about some really graphic, uncomfortable stuff. But I feel like the 4 hours allows them to kind of paint more context as to how this abuse unfolded. And it feels very realistic. It feels very much like Michael Jackson wasn't the guy running around going, come here, kid. He was someone who may have very well had some mental issues and been my theories, he was a child who never grew up, but who's also an adult who is aware of sexuality, and he does not know how to process that, which in no way makes it right, because he obviously knew it was wrong, because it also comes out several times in these conversations that he was telling them to keep quiet, that he's hiding evidence.
They had, like, practice drills of, like, getting dressed if people were coming, down the hallway, which had, like, bells hanging so that if people were walking by, they would, it was like, no, it was... He definitely knew he was doing
knew it
something.
was, and he had, like, if you listen to their description, which, again, the other reason that I believe these guys is no one goes in that detail.
Yeah. And their stories were, exactly the same, basically, like, as far as, like, the actual abuse that happened to them is I don't know, exactly the same, basically.
Yeah, and you hear it line up with other people's stories later. I think in the second part they lean more into that you hear of more of the other stories in the lawsuits. And, both boys testified at his first trial, and one of them testified at his second trial, both saying he did not abuse them.
Right.
But by the end of it, you understand that he had a procedure. He had a way to do this, and he was methodical. But I feel like you also understand why they didn't come forward and how conflicting this was to them, because they still have this, it happened when they were kids, and there's this love for Michael Jackson that they don't know how to process. Mm-hmm. Matt, what do you think?
Yeah. No, I think that's, as far as believing them, when this first debuted at, one of the festivals fairly recently. Sundance. There was a lot of chatter about it, like, well, I certainly can't, a lot of stuff about how they certainly can't listen to Michael Jackson music anymore, and how they 100% believe that he's guilty of all these things. And then kind of in the noise around that, I started seeing a lot of stuff that was like, well, maybe, but here, it's hard to trust these guys. They went on the stand and apparently lied for him. Why is this coming out now? There's and why does one decide that he was only going to come forward with his story when it seemed like he was having financial troubles and blah, 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 blah. And so I was reading that before I watched it, and then I read some of that after I watched it. And regardless of all that, it seems crazy to me how you could watch this 4-hour documentary and not believe them.
It's like, I think that if you can believe that they slept in the same room as an adult man at this guy's insistence for weeks at a time, but then you're also that's not in dispute. People say, other adults around them know that happened.
Right, yep.
Well, then you're not, right, and then you're not, but you're not going to believe that this man also, that he abused them. It's like, I don't know. There's just, and the thing too about them not coming forward, both of these kids were 7 years old. That is at the, I have to think, at the pinnacle of when the adults that you trust in your life are forming literally your entire reality. And he was like a member of their family to them. Yeah. So it's it's not like brainwashing. It is brainwashing. When you are 7 years old, you believe what the adults that you trust tell you to be true without a shadow of a doubt. You're 7. That's how your brain works.
Well, and I think the celebrity factor adds to it. Because here's the thing, where they are going to a man's house who he is larger than life. They don't really have, even a grown-up wouldn't have the ability to discern kind of what's normal in his life. He's this pop star who is just in a totally different world than any of us. Right. And you add that, and
with their parents too, their parents' infatuation and excitement, and oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening to our family. Yeah. To you, it's not like the parents don't ever sound skeptical.
Well, one thing, and again, this gets into the thing that I think convinced me is, you do watch this. Yeah, you're right. You watch the show, and you're thinking the two boys' mother, especially the Wade Robinson's mother, from Australia, they have to be the worst parents in the world in some ways. Because, even if it's a family member, I'm not letting my kids sleep in bed with them.
Who's the one that they left? They left him there.
That was them.
And went to the Grand Canyon or whatever.
They had known him for 28 hours?
And she's well, I know he was a stranger, but he just didn't seem like a stranger because he's so famous and because we listened to his music all day. And it was yeah, but he's a stranger, right? It was just, I feel like everyone was so warped and under his spell.
Well, and then you see how... And I think, again, the second half really leans into the honesty a little bit. The first half does too, but the second you see the kind of them grappling with this. Wade Robinson's mom left their family in Australia, left his father and her other son in Australia to move to L.A., so that her son could have a dancing career, learning from Michael Jackson. And are you going back to watch the second episode?
No,
okay.
I don't think so.
So spoilers for this. This is an action that, in the end, puts her son in close proximity to the man who abused him for years. But his dad also goes through a deep depression when his family leaves.
Yeah.
And ends up killing himself.
Oh my God.
And they're on it, and the moms do at the end say, how, I failed. I was a failure as a mom in this area because I didn't protect my kid. And I think if it wasn't, I think if you were making it up, you would put the blame squarely on someone else. And that is what convinced me, is the complexity at the end of it. And it made me pissed off. You said you were sick watching it. Matt, I'm assuming you were upset. I don't know what emotions pass through your brain. But.
It's upsetting.
Were you like, not surprised? Like, what was,
I don't know.
How did you grapple with what you thought before and after your views of Michael Jackson?
I guess I wasn't surprised about any of it. He had been, he had been on trial twice for these kinds of allegations, right? And I think there was a civil suit. There was multiple accusers between 93 and 2000.
Yeah, this isn't like a secret.
No, right. So, I don't know. I guess I just, after the last one, the one where, Jimmy Safechuck wouldn't testify, and the one where Wade Robson did testify, I was like, well, that's, I remember that trial, and I think my recollection from that is being like, oh, well, yeah, he probably did it. And so I guess that's kind of been my general feeling towards him, is that I guess I just assumed he was a pedophile. So I guess I wasn't surprised. The details and stuff are
so shocking.
Really, terrible. And so that stuff is really bizarre to hear. And then
the recordings of them talking, I don't know if there's any in the second part, but there's a couple in the first one where it's on the plane and they're just playing around with these recording, and even the stuff he's saying is so creepy and strange, and telling this kid that he was the best part of whatever that tour, whatever the show that they just did, and it's so. Ugh.
They describe at one point coming home from vacation, and their floor is just filled with faxes from him, just because he needed to talk to this kid, and it's creepy. I don't know why you would. You would cut off conversation with anyone else if they did that.
Yeah, that's Yeah, and hindsight, and I don't, in hindsight, it's all so incredibly bizarre. Mm-hmm. I just don't, it seems so strange to me that it was, I don't know, that it was, people were so easily, fooled by it, because his, act is pretty transparent. In hindsight, I'm like...
Yeah, I kept thinking, were the 70s and 80s that bizarre? Because... I will not talk about this again, but I also watched Abducted in Plain Sight, which is sort of has a similar tone, and all this stuff happens where you're like, how are all of these adults, it's it just seems so strange. Was it really that weird in that period of time that people are like, oh yeah, kids and adults sleeping in bed together, whatever,
right.
Kids not coming home, oh, they're probably sleeping at so-and-so's house, whatever. It just seems so strange.
It is strange. Yeah, no, but exactly. It is very strange.
And the guy that I don't know the difference between the two guys. The one where the mom was like, well, he wanted to sleep in his hotel room right away, but I didn't let him, and then he just kept asking, so I just let him, and and then they kept having her room farther and farther and farther from their room, and it's how, and then she would be like, oh, but he would just, champagne and limos and blah, blah. And it's that's what you were, it's just, how do you grapple? How?
Yeah.
How do you sell your kid out like that?
I don't know. The moms are definitely, I'd argue both moms are certainly culpable in all this. They certainly, if you had said that one or both of them was going to spend prison time for what happened, I would probably be like, oh, yeah, okay, they probably deserve that. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, definitely like blinded by the trappings of fame and all of that stuff, and like the relationship he had with both mothers is very weird, very different, and like different, right? Like,
and almost no relationship with the fathers.
You're right. Yeah,
right,
exactly.
They're barely in it at all.
Yeah,
and yeah, right. No relationship with the fathers. And...
Well, they were both like, oh, he would call me mom. He acted like my son. Like, I would do his laundry.
Well, so that's the one mom. I think that was Jimmy Safechuck's mom.
Okay.
I think
because he stayed at their house,
right? And so she had more of a like mother-son relationship with him, which is creepy because they were probably very close in age.
Yeah.
And then I got the sense his relationship with Wade Robson's mom was more it was more friendly, I guess.
Yeah, it was definitely. I mean, she definitely liked the fame, and I think he understood that.
Yes,
I mean it's. You also have to factor in. I mean, this is a guy whose popularity, I don't even know if we can compare it to anyone right now.
No, and they used to say that a lot, and I agree with that.
And the fact is, he's the most popular man on the planet at that point.
Yep.
But he's also so stunted emotionally that I can almost understand going, yeah, he's just like a kid. He is emotionally impaired. Of course, I'll let him hang out with my son. I don't know. It's strange.
Well, the one mom would say she would sneak to their room and listen against the door to see what they were doing. And she was like, they were always, like, reading comic books and watching cartoons, like, just doing kid stuff. Like, he was just a kid. And it's like, well, actually, he was an adult man, but okay. Yeah. Like...
And I kind of want to get into this. We talk about how easy it was for them to kind of look the other way. But I remember when those trials were going on, or I remember there was actually a Simpsons episode where they were talking about, the boogeyman. They're like, oh, the boogeyman's just something that adults made up to scare kids. Like Michael Jackson. Uh-huh. And we all knew, like, those were the rumors about him, and we still bought his music.
Yeah.
And I think probably before he died... Everyone was pretty jaded on him, He's odd. He's odd. Even if he didn't do something with those kids, he was a weirdo. He Wacko Jacko was what they called him. And then he died, and the narrative in a weekend changed.
Yeah.
And suddenly it was I had people out of nowhere. He was just a kid. He was a big kid. My Facebook feed was.
Yeah, which is such nonsense.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, this whole, but he didn't have a childhood thing. There are millions of people who didn't have a childhood, who don't grow up to be pedophiles, who don't grow up to be, man-child, in their, demeanor, or do... You know what I mean? They don't use that as a cover for a bunch of illegal behavior. I don't know.
And, he was deliberate and manipulative and careful. He was not a victim of his own. You're a victim of your own childhood until you're literally become an adult, and then you're responsible for fixing it. I mean, it's like doing the work on yourself. He knew what he was doing was wrong. He proved it over and over and over and over again.
I think people knew this. I think when he died, people would say the same thing. I think what it came down to, and I'm probably guilty of it as well because I listened to his music. I think it came down to, you know what? Even subconsciously, we're probably thinking this at that time. He was a weirdo. He probably hurt some kids. He's dead. He can't do that anymore. I really like his music. So I will keep listening to his music.
Right.
And the narrative on him just switched so much to the point where I think the other reason this needs to be 4 hours long is to combat 10 years of looking the other way. I know when this was done, I was livid. Like you, I have 2 kids, and you can't help but think about what would I do if that was my kid. And you hear what happened to Wade Robson's family, and you realize, oh, he came over here hoping to be taught by Michael Jackson. They destroyed their whole family for this, and it was all built around this abuse. And they allude to that at the end. And the first thing I did after this was done, I know this sounds dramatic, but it's what I did. I pulled up my Spotify and any albums I had by him, because I had Thriller and Bad on there.
Sure.
Got rid of them. I don't need to hear that anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, I know we were talking beforehand. You said you would get sick if you heard.
Yeah, like after I don't have any of his music like on my phone or my streaming service, but like I feel like the Zumba class that I used to take, we did like Thriller for a month straight during Halloween. And when I think of like I was dancing to that last year, when I think about that, like I like physically feel ill right now to like even just thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I'm so like irritated with myself and almost to the point of angry that I didn't think about. I was the same way where I was like, he was definitely a weirdo, but he definitely maybe did some inappropriate stuff, but. And when you see the videos of these poor 7-year-olds looking at him just with like almost literal stars in their eyes, they are thinking this, this is the best day of their life. Like the one little boy that won the dance competition, like, and they interview him right after. This is before he met Michael Jackson. And he's like, what would you ask? And he says, I would ask him to come over for dinner and teach me the moonwalk. And he's so happy. And to think about like someone taking advantage of that, it brings me to tears. It breaks my heart. Kids kids can't protect themselves against this kind of manipulation and abuse. It's so far out of their orbit. Their brain like literally can't go there, so they depend on the other adults in their lives to protect them. Mm-hmm. And every adult along the way failed them so miserably that I just can't fathom it. I can't.
Yeah. Matt, what about you? Are you still gonna be breaking out your moonwalk shoes? Or
I mean, the moonwalk is a very cool dance, right? Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess the truth is, I couldn't tell you the last time I went out of my way to actually listen to Michael Jackson's music. Like, it's been maybe decades since I've like been like, I'm gonna put on some Michael Jackson, because I think I owned a couple of Michael Jackson cassette tapes when I was a kid. So that's probably the last time I don't think I've ever owned a CD of his. I don't remember downloaded his music. I like his music because I know it all. You know what I mean? Like It's all been on for so long. So I know it, so I guess I like it in that regard. But I don't go out of my way to listen to it. So I'll probably continue to do that, and
you're not going to go out of your way to listen to it.
I don't know, I'm also not like, well, I can't ever listen to that again. I just, it seems hypocritical. I think it would be hypocritical of me to be like, that's the line I'm going to draw, where I like let other people's bad behavior dictate what I'm going to do, because we like fill our lives with like things and stuff created by bad people, right? And we like let that, like we buy shoes that are made by orphans, and we support, overthrowing other nations, and we watch football, and there's football players who have killed people in hit-and-run accidents who then were back playing in the league. Or, directors who they had sex with kids and married their adopted daughters or whatever.
Is there one you're thinking about?
What I mean? Like, we still watch their movies.
It's weird. There's this whole idea of separate the art from the artist, and there is no fine line. Like, I honestly, like, I can't listen to Michael Jackson because, like I said, his celebrity played into why he could do this.
I can see that, yeah.
And I think if you mess with kids, like, that's the straw for me.
Okay.
But, you know what? I like Mel Gibson movies. Like, and I don't know, and I don't have...
He's not a good person.
I mean...
I don't have a defense on that. Same thing, Louis C.K. I can't watch Louis anymore because he's a jackass.
He's a jackass, right, yeah.
But I like Alec Baldwin. I like 30... I didn't stop watching 30 Rock.
Watching 30 Rock, yeah. I don't know, it's strange. I guess...
There's something personal about watching a man who is our age, don't you think those kids older?
Oh, Michael Jackson?
No, I'm sorry, the victims in the documentary. They're about our age.
Yeah.
These men who grew up when I grew up, telling these absolutely horrifying, gory details about their abuse, that if I had heard these same stories about other artists and other bad people, if someone was like on a screen 6 inches away from my face detailing it out to me, I probably would stop listening to their stuff too. That's part of what this documentary brings to light. Is
that's fair.
So that's why I
don't think there's anything wrong with it.
No.
And I think
you obviously bring up a good point.
I don't know. Well, it's certainly easier to remove yourself from certain bad things, right? Like Woody Allen, unless he's starring in the movie, if it's something he's directed, he's not on the screen. So it's easy to distance, so if you go to see a Woody Allen movie that he's not in, it's easy to be like, well, I'm not seeing Woody Allen, I'm not hearing Woody Allen, right? So then when you're talking about Michael Jackson, if you're listening to Michael Jackson's music, you are very clearly hearing Michael Jackson communicate. He's like communicating to you through this medium.
Well, except when you look at Woody Allen's movies, they are all about an older man sleeping with a younger woman.
That is true.
It's so bizarre, and there's so many like different opinions, things that impact your views. So what I would love to hear is...
Oh, yeah, here we go.
I would love to hear our listeners.
Oh!
I would love to hear their perspective on this. So, by the time this podcast comes out, we should have our Facebook site up and running. We should have our Twitter up and running. So, tweet at us, or email us, or catch us on Facebook. Let us know what you think. How do you decide... what artists you're still going to pay attention to when they're revealed to be horrible
And
people.
if you've seen it, and if you believe... I want to hear from someone that doesn't believe...
Absolutely.
The boys, or the men, rather.
Absolutely. So hit up our show. Let us know. Hopefully we'll be able to read some on the air. If not, we'll try to at least respond to everything on the Facebook page. But I want to know. I definitely do. And that brings us to the end of our first episode. We made it.
Wow, guys. It feels good to be back.
Feels good.
I'm feeling limber.
Yeah.
Everybody.
By the time this comes up, you should have been able to find us on, obviously, MichiganSportsandEntertainment.com, but we're on Spotify, Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us. Look in the show notes for our Facebook and Twitter accounts. Where can people find you guys online, Matt?
Twitter, mainly. That's where I do most of my online activity. It's at Matt December.
Where you're an avid tweeter?
Not anymore. I'm more of a reader on Twitter than a writer. But if I start getting a lot of new followers because they're listening to our podcast, which is called Wasting Time, I will be more active.
Absolutely. Hashtag wasting time.
Hashtag wasting time.
Beth, where are you at online?
I spend most of my time on my business accounts, so that's unicornfood.com, YOUNICORN food.com. And then I also have a Unicorn Food Instagram and a very active Pinterest page. And that's my email as well, Beth@unicornfood.com.
Awesome. You can find my writing at Michigan Sports and Entertainment every Tuesday and every Thursday. And occasionally I do an opinion piece or a news piece. Listen to my podcast. We're watching here every other Friday here at Michigan Sports and Entertainment. And follow me on Twitter at Mere Christianity. And we will see you guys next week.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.